Hello, everybody. Welcome to the You Matter podcast. Today, I'm here with my dear friend, Paul Luftenegger. Paul is such an inspiring guy. His words, his thoughts, and all the precious offerings he shares captivates and motivates my heart to know love more. And it's just such an honor to be sharing my dear friend Paul with you here today. Paul is an international musician. He lives in Canada. He's recorded 8 albums, and he's now working on the 9th, which I'm sitting here with bated breath to see what comes out of this man. Paul is an incredible person who inspires love and consciousness and kindness throughout the world. His music has been listened by people, like I say, all over the world and by millions of people. He's often found opening up for some of our greatest authors and spiritual teachers that are among us today. Paul is a doctor. He has his doctorate in divinity. Am I saying that right?
You are, yes.
And he's a reverend. So thank you so much for coming on here today, Paul. That's just a sliver of your resume, and you know, we'd probably burn up this whole podcast.
Yes, that's funny. I know the list gets longer over time, as you know, as you get older. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So today, Paul made a comment on one of my social media posts. Love expands love, and it just set a tidal wave of love and emotion and experience in me. I've heard him say this phrase before. It's one of your albums, is it not? Or
Yeah, so one of my albums is Love Expanding Love. Yeah.
Mhm. And I think that's a profound statement. And so I've asked Paul to come on today to share with me some of his thoughts. What does that mean? Why does love expand love? And I'm just so curious to dig into your thoughts about that.
Mm, it's a really big conversation, and one that as we know, there's so much going on in the world today. So it's not to placate or bypass the hard parts of life. I think sometimes we gloss over things far too often. I think life is very real. I think it's incredibly challenging. I think it's very hard. I don't think that everyone is loved. I really do understand
Mm,
that it's not always easy to understand or come from love. However, I feel that if we can find a place in our heart where we have felt or seen or witnessed love, we know some version of it. And for me, one of the things I want to sort of start this conversation to lead from is the fact that actually this week, 14 years ago was my father's suicide. And I don't think I could be doing what I'm doing today or talk about this the way that I understand it and the importance of it from the perspective of understanding my father's suicide. And I think it's a hard subject to have. I also feel that I'm concerned about the state of the world right now. I'm concerned. I know a lot of people speak to the new generation being so far ahead of all of us, and for me, I don't actually feel like that. I think it's hard to be a human being today. I feel very compassionate toward the youth of today. I don't think they're thriving, actually, in my opinion. I see a lot of drug
mhm,
addiction, and so I think I want to kind of approach love expanding love that it starts within you. So for me, I had a vision when I was in the healing space 14 years ago with my grief with my father, where I was shown that the kingdom of heaven is through opening our heart with our love. And I remember the profound moment where I was with God, that God showed me that the gates of heaven are through your own heart.
mhm,
Now, I'd like to just start there because I want every single person to go into their heart. Number one, be compassionate and kind to yourself. If you start there, it's not easy always to love yourself because I think we have a lot of voices in our head sometimes talking negatively about who we are. But I think if you can just work to start by loving yourself, what it does is you can take away the knives from your own throat. You can
Mm.
remove the burden that you have been struggling with just by being gentle and compassionate to yourself. So, really, love expanding love begins with you loving yourself and working from that space first. And then I had this vision where when we open our heart and connect with something greater than ourself, I call that God, creator, spirit, the one, the all, the everything, whatever you call it, the universe, but something that is divinely intelligent, and you connect to that and you bring that divinity into you, your love expands.
Mm.
And then from there, you have the ability to expand that to first yourself, and then one moment at a time with another soul or another heart, where you might say something or share something that's loving and kind. And in this world, those things get noticed pretty fast. So that's kind of I think to begin this conversation, I think to start by understanding that it begins with your love for yourself.
Yeah, and that's such a fundamental aspect that's come up in my journey because
Yeah.
it was one of the most difficult things for me to actually get a handle on.
Yeah.
And I proclaimed it, but I didn't really claim it. I didn't really own that. And
Mhm.
that's by owning my own self-love, it has really transformed my life. And
Mhm.
so, for someone who's just sitting there at the beginning of this journey of love that,
Mhm.
I've been unpacking so steadily in the last so many years. I've really looked at this topic and brought a lot of awareness because I felt like it was really special and important, and it was something that I needed to learn and then eventually share. So, for someone sitting at the beginning of this journey, how do we love ourselves? I have my ideas, but I want to hear about yours.
Well, I think like anything, I can speak only personally speaking for me. So as you can, and I remember actually my husband actually taught me a long time ago and brought this awareness to me, and it's very important. Is that I don't know what it's like to be someone else, and I think we begin by actually that I don't know what it means for you or for someone else to go through that process, but for me, I can speak to that, and I know it really well. So for me, I can share some of my challenges in my life where that I was the second born child, which meant that, it was challenging in my family. My parents were very young when they had me. They worked a lot, but I was beautifully blessed to be raised by my grandmothers, actually. So my granny and my grandma. And I was raised in such a way where they were sort of the natural built-in daycare system. And I was very blessed to have that. Not everybody gets that. I get that. So for me, one of the things that I feel is really helpful is that you can start to look at your life and do some reflections on what made you feel love or what you experienced love to be when you were younger. And in your life review process, there is obviously some pains and challenges. So they do come up. So what I did after my father died, as guided by God, literally, I went into a review of my life. I did a life review. I think that is probably one of the best things you could ever do for yourself. I think it's the greatest makeover. I think it's one of the hardest things to do at times because you have to face some hard things that have happened. But if you can do an honest life review, which can take as little as a week or as long as years, maybe even decades. Maybe there's the version that's short and there's also the long version that you can continue. For me, I always review my life because I think there's things that happened in your past that can help you. And the child that was within you, I think you were a child first to heal you. And I think the world is full of a lot of really hurt children that are adults. That's what I
Yeah.
feel. And I've been doing this for a long time, and I speak to this because I know I was a hurt child that was, I don't think, really understanding that by not doing a life review, I was potentially not at my greatest potential. And I think it begins by being willing to have a look at yourself within your life and healing some of the hard parts, by truly having some compassion for the hard parts and then taking the diamond light moments, I call them. They're like seeds. So for me, I loved music, I loved art, I loved movies. and taking those and bringing them into your moment of now as an adult and doing something with those loving diamond light seeds and nurturing them in your heart now. That's, I think, how love expanding love starts.
Okay. Yeah. And I love that. And it's sort of ironic when there's been points of awakening throughout my life. And some of those points of awakening, or actually maybe most of those points of awakening, involved a deep reflection into self.
Hmm.
It involved me setting down everything outside of me to just truly gaze inward without any hiding, without any judgment, just
Hmm.
a willingness, a sheer willingness to look at myself and be honest and
Yeah.
say, what am I struggling with? And I think people know, they innately know what they struggle with, but
Hmm.
we avoid that dialogue, or that we avoid that in ourselves.
Yeah.
So
I think
bringing,
also too, I want to add one more thing to it. I think what happens is that we don't want to dwell in them. So I think it's really
Mhm,
beautiful that I think in some ways it's almost a protection not to. So yes, I agree with you. And also you can add to it that I think it doesn't mean that you need to live in it. You don't need to live in the hard places. However, if they exist within you, perhaps there's some things around them that actually might benefit from adding some fresh oxygen to and some fresh perspective from the adult version of you that gets to then become the parent to the hurt child. And I think this is the thing that we don't really think of life sometimes where we get to then take over where our parents perhaps didn't give us what we needed, or maybe we didn't have the experience that we were hoping to have, and then as an adult, you get to claim your freedom and liberate yourself out of some of those burdens. And I think without looking at them, well, you don't even know they're there. And unfortunately, in the conscious and subconscious mind, they're playing out over and over again in your life, whether or not you realize it or not. And I think that is where things start to really change, is where you understand that there is actually a conscious and a subconscious mind.
mhm. Well, in what I was going to add to that is that, after we do so many replays in our mind, we eventually turn the process of self-reflection into self-whipping. We're abusing ourselves with
Well said.
with our past. And so, it's been my practice that once I find this tough spot or this difficult situation that I went through, once I figure that out and say, okay, this is the crux here that I need to look at. What I do is I start to frame it in a different way.
Yeah.
I start to accept it. I say, okay, that happened. I didn't like it. It didn't feel good. And it didn't, it, I felt hurt. However, it happened. I accepted it. And in that acceptance, it didn't make me wrong. It didn't make the other person right. But it was sort of a way that I would draw a line in the sand.
Right.
And then I could move forward. And each time that commentary, or I noticed a behavior resulting out of my past wound, I could
Hmm.
say, oh yeah, there's that thing. I
Yeah.
accept that. I'm moving on. Which in turn has helped me
It's beautiful.
open up a space in myself so that I could go into these more loving moments like you're talking about.
Yeah,
And
that's
and
really powerful, Ned. Yeah.
mhm. And so for you, like once you started clearing out all these things that were holding you back, all these things that you're hanging on to, what was sort of the next step in your evolution?
Well, I think the thing that I really feel like the thing that I remember hearing all of these things about purpose and life. I used to be so confused when people would say like, well, what's your life's purpose? And I really didn't know the answer. I think I did know the answer, but I didn't understand it per se. So I didn't claim it because I didn't understand it. And what happened after my father died is I realized that I knew that my life was never going to be the same. And for me, what happened in that space is I realized I needed to do a really good overhaul if I wanted to heal. So that meant that I had to go and look at some of I think just my hard challenges in my life surrounding some of the things that I loved. So one of them was with music. One of the things that I had stopped doing is I had stopped playing music. So I went to school when I was younger. I kind of went as far as you can go up until the end of high school with music. I was a gifted, in people considered me a gifted child within singing, actually.
Mm.
So I was acknowledged throughout my childhood for my musical abilities. And I loved music, and I thought at one point I would become a professional musician. And the thing that happened when my dad died, I hadn't been playing or singing for probably about 13 years. And I realized that that was a problem for me. And I realized that I loved singing because all that I could do was be with myself. I couldn't deal with the world after my dad's suicide. So I started looking at why I stopped singing. Like what happened? And I realized that I stopped singing because life got busy. I stopped singing because I wasn't sure I had anything to sing about. I stopped singing because I wasn't sure I was good enough. I wasn't sure I had any talent. I sort of felt betrayed by music in a way because I felt like I didn't make it as far as I thought I would. And I did try. It's not that I didn't try. However, when I sat down at the piano after my dad died, I was having like music was flooding out of my hands instantly. And
Feels.
I was experiencing God is what was
Yeah.
going on. And I remember people telling me to take little blue pills. I don't know what they are. I don't know what they're called. But basically, I guess if you go through trauma, you can take a pill that are little and blue. I don't know what they are. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking, and I had a question to myself, and I was like, and do I want to stop what I'm feeling so that I feel better? And I realized the message was very clear that I'm not unique to go through death. Like death is a part of life. And if I take a pill to stop what I feel, I won't heal naturally. And
Mhm.
I wanted to heal naturally. So my answer for me, I don't know, no judgment if people take any pills, but for me, personally speaking, for me, I knew I didn't want to block what I was feeling because I felt that in order to heal something, you have to feel it. And I
Yeah.
wanted to heal. So I let that pain come out of me through my being the instrument through music. And it helped me every single time I did it. I felt a little bit stronger, not fast either, but it felt a little bit more clear every time I would sit down and play. And I think just to the point of all of this conversation about it is that I think I gave myself permission to just be the musician that I am, rather than
Mhm.
what the world was demanding of me if I was to be a musician of today's time. And I wrote for me, not for anybody else, for the first time in my life. And I sang for me, not for somebody else. And when I did that for me with God, what happened is other people noticed that that music was beautiful and people could relate to it. And it was something that people noticed immediately. And it started to become a thing when I would share that music publicly. So that's kind of what happened for me in that.
Yeah, and when you and I'm so grateful you did that because when when the words come out of your mouth when you sing, it's a portal into healing for
Yeah.
others. Your healing is inspiring healing, so healing expands healing.
Yeah.
Your healing through that has been so incredibly powerful in your work, and
Yes.
your ability to love yourself is is expanding other people to love themselves through what you sing.
Hmm.
And I think that added component of what you're talking about when you mentioned purpose, I'm like, okay, bingo. For me, that's such a big topic because what throws us into our deepest passions is our purpose.
Yeah.
And it's sitting there in our hearts. And it's just, it doesn't have any agenda. It doesn't, you don't get behind in it. It's not angry if you don't follow it, but
Yeah.
it's there waiting for you in any moment. And no matter how old you get, your purpose is right there waiting, and we can follow it or we don't have to. But when
Hmm.
we do, I think we find ourselves in the lap of the divine. We find
I agree.
ourselves in
Well,
expanding.
I to the point of that too, what I think is really interesting about that particular subject is that We oftentimes, I remember listening to Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, give a talk about she sometimes made people feel really bad about not being aware of purpose or not having a purpose. And I relate to that because I think what happens is we get confused about what purpose is all about. I think actually just breathing is purpose.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like just take a breath right now while we're even in this conversation. Like I'm going to do the same. Like take a deep breath. Sometimes just breathing is purpose. And I
Yeah.
think it also then from that it can expand to other things that can become new purpose, or that can be these new blooms where you have the ability to care about something that you perhaps haven't considered, and that becomes purpose. And
Mhm.
sometimes your purpose is a long purpose, or sometimes it's a short purpose. And I really feel like when you start living in that space, what happens is you realize that you're someone that matters to creation. And that's the lap of God that you're talking about, is I think just allowing yourself to just be in a space where just breathing is enough sometimes.
Yeah.
Like that's sometimes all you have to give, and that's okay. And then from there, I feel like your love expands from just breathing,
Mhm.
just the act of just existing.
And that's, if I were to sum up my thoughts on purpose, it'd be it's here in this moment right now, and it's a live feed. It continuously drops at your feet, and by becoming
Beautiful.
aware of this moment, you fulfill purpose.
Yeah.
You know,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
so when I said that, the lap, we're sitting in the lap of the divine. Last week, I was in the Bahamas, and I did a talk about creation and creativity. Before I started my talk, I opened up with one of your beautiful songs,
Hmm.
and the angels are listening.
Hmm.
And had the talk been longer, I would have played the entire song, but I played like 4 minutes of 3 minutes of the song.
Yeah.
And when the song was finished playing, and I invited people to move into their hearts, and
Hmm.
when the song was finished playing, I said, the room was just so silent and still and imbued with love. And I
Hmm.
said, right now, you're sitting in the lap of creation,
Yes, I
you
remember.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the energy in that moment was so powerful.
Hmm.
And, it's, it expanded the love in the room.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting when you look at like just to go back to the healing space of that. One of the things that I love about, so that's from my Spheres of Love album, just to put it in a timeline. That was written in 2021, which would have been pretty much 11 years after my father's passing. So it's my last album. And one of the things that I love about I think just that album in particular is I really feel that, at our best and highest self, which I believe is actually the purpose of life, actually, is to be our highest self and manifest,
Mhm.
meaning that we get to be maybe both broken and both whole. We get to be the love and the light, and hopefully get to a space where we feel like we have some version of liking ourselves where we matter. And it's a process, right? And some days it's better than others. But going back to the song, the angels are listening. I kind of, as a musician, one of the things that I'm really interested in is the microphone. I remember as a child, as a musician, I hated being in a microphone because I got scared about what could happen in a microphone moment, the imperfection or the perfection. And for anybody that, I mean, I'm a public person, I have had to use microphones. I remember like having to do speeches as a child. I hated doing speeches because I hated being in front of people. I just didn't like it. I don't really actually like being in front of people because I feel very vulnerable. But I heard somebody say once that it's because I make that about me. It's not about me if I'm in a microphone. It's actually about what I can do with my voice, using my energies constructively as opposed to destructively. And I think it goes back to, when you think about who's listening and why they're listening and what is listening that is physical and metaphysical, I'm very interested in the metaphysical. Like space is always listening to us. You know, I love how when you're a creator, everything comes from the void, the silence. You know,
Mm.
and music is the notes between, so music is really the space between the notes as much as it is the note. Like,
Yeah.
so it's the whole song is all of the notes and the spaces between them, the void, right? And I think just to the point of the void is I love how even in a song there's a void, which is such a small thing that people don't think about, that's such a big thing. And I love how, you know, we are always in the space of divinity listening to what we're doing vibrationally. And I love the angels are listening because it is very true. Like, we are always, like, I believe that the universe is very intelligent and knows exactly what we're doing here, you
Hmm.
know. And when you know that, when you think about that, that's incredible. So that song gives permission actually for the human heart and the human soul to realize that what they're doing in this moment matters. And
Hmm.
I really feel like showed me and that audience in that moment actually that not only do they matter, you matter, and that actually me, who wasn't even physically with you, I was with you in watching what you were doing because it was publicized, but I was also very aware that, you know, you were actually bringing a field of listening greater than just where you were in the Bahamas. I was in
Hmm.
Canada, and I wonder where else people were listening. So the very thing of the song saying that the angels are listening is true because there was people listening.
Yeah.
And if you have a witness, you have consciousness sort of very much with you. And the divine is literally with you. So it was powerful, Ned.
It was a really powerful experience for me, and being in that room and starting it out with your beautiful offering, you know, sort of set the stage and amplified the environment. It was already an amplified environment, but it really set that setting so much more efficiently than, you know, quite often I get up and I say something funny and make everybody laugh. Just to cut my own tension, right?
Yeah.
But you know, it was the perfect way to open that up.
Mm,
In that talk, I said that if we continuously choose love, eventually our life becomes a result of that choice.
yeah, that's so
And
beautifully said.
that is a powerful point for me when I think about love, expanding love, is that by me choosing love, everything around me now is this result of that choice. When I'm loving to a person and I see that person again,
Hmm.
that resonance of love is still between us. You
Hmm.
know, the way I constructed my office, this beautiful room I'm sitting in,
Hmm.
I put this together with love. And
Hmm.
there's a resonance in here of love. When I walk into this room, I feel it. My
Hmm.
customers feel it. They say all the time, "Oh, it's so comfortable. It's calm in here." And I said it was built with love.
Hmm.
You know, can you speak to some of that? Like how has your love expanded love in your life?
Well, I think just to circle around what you're saying in terms of your space and just the space in general, I really feel that at our best and highest self, we are love. And I think we come from love. I think another word for God is love.
Mhm.
And you know, to the point of choosing love, I remember if you look at, let's just look at out into the world and you look at somebody, I kind of want to use a teaching that was given to me a long time ago, which actually is why I probably do and know what I know. So Dr. Maya Angelou, when my father died by suicide in 2011, came to London, Ontario. And she is, I remember being such a fool. I can be a fool sometimes. Was so worried that this woman who's so beautiful was coming to London, Ontario, my hometown. And I remember thinking, oh, I hope enough people come tonight. The fool that I am. That audience was not only full, it was oversold. Like, I had no idea how big this woman was. And that's because I had no concept of really what she did. But one of the things I loved about this woman that gave me a really clear understanding is that, first of all, words have power. One day we'll be able to measure how much power each word has. When you use the good words, good things surround you. When you use the bad words, bad things surround you. And this sounds really, if you just stop, and maybe it's new to you, but I want you to think about this a lot. I want you to contemplate this, because if you use good words, who's going to be attracted to you are the good people that use the good words, or that want to, or that desire to. We all have desires, right? So when you use love, peace, joy, happiness, prosperity, any of those good words, those things tend to start to surround you.
Mhm.
They start to become your life experience, right? So I remember when she said this to me, that words have power, in 2011. It's like God was literally speaking to me, because I was like, oh my gosh, I can use my words in my music. Well, look at this. I wouldn't know you if I didn't use my good words, would I? Right?
Mhm.
And
That's right.
here's the thing with love. I remember Justin Bieber complaining about something that he had put out that wasn't it. He was sort of annoyed by his fans at one point. And I remember thinking, well, what's he putting out? Right? Like, question mark. Why would that be said? And I think for the point of this is, if I sang about hatred, hostility, anger, like all of those things, I guarantee you that love that I crave and know is what I desire would not be surrounding me. And it doesn't mean that these people are bad, but they're amplifying something. For me, I amplify love. And when I amplify love, like a microphone, when I put love into the microphone and it amplifies, it surrounds me. And I love the experience of sharing that shared experience of love. So for me, when I look to love, and every time I've been, if I'm on a stage now, or if I'm doing something, it doesn't mean I don't get scared or fearful, or that I get in my head and feel like I'm not good enough, or whatever those things might come. What I have the ability to do now is to say, this is about love. I'm going to go, I'm going to prepare and do the best I can with my love, and I'm going to share. And if I help one person here, I've done love. I've helped love. And usually, I mean, the last audience that I had was 40,000 people, which was a lot of love potential. I don't know how many people felt that love, but I think quite a few of them. And I feel like love is like a muscle. Like, if you work it out and you keep consistently, just teaspoon by teaspoon by teaspoon, you eventually have wheelbarrows of it. And then you have tractor trailers of it. Then you have worlds that are more loving around you. And I think, just like anything, it all becomes part of your intention. So I just, and what's really wild is that when I look to what I've done in my life, when people look at me and they write me something like, you just really helped me in a hard moment. Thank you so much. Or whatever those messages are that come, and they give credit to me. I just think that love is a result of really the love that I've been loved with. So it's not mine. It was given to me by someone else, and I get to amplify it. And I think that's how this all works now. And I think the world is actually getting it more than we are told. And I'm excited about that. And that, I think, just in all of these beautiful spaces that we witness, there are really two worlds going on: the loving world and the fear-based world. And you get to choose, like you said at the beginning of this question, is you choose love. Like, it's a choice, and then the experience is surrounding you. So it's important.
And the other side of that too, Paul, is that as I've continued to choose love, eventually love began to choose me. And it
Uh,
has everything to do with what you just said. I My field of awareness, my energy around me, it's built up, and people that are love will gravitate to me. You
yes,
know,
exactly.
there's nothing the fear group can juice out of my aura, because I'm not afraid in life. I'm I'm as fearless as I can possibly be at this point in my life. And
I think one of the things that I think that people can also, like, this is the hardest part about this, is that it doesn't mean that you can't get, like, for me, I can speak for me, is that I can have somebody come at me or come for me. As an example, I'm gay, right? So as a gay person in today's world, you know, it's not as common as it was when I was younger, but it can still happen, right?
Mhm.
Or in the political charged engine that we're in, if somebody comes to me that's like forcing their will on me, I can push back and become angry. But
Mhm.
I think the thing that, and I don't want to say that love is all, like, I think sometimes love, I remember Maya talking about love. Sometimes love is courageous to stand up and say, no, you don't. No,
Mhm.
you don't. Not right now. No, no,
Yeah.
no. And I think because love is very much like a virtue and a value that we can relate to. I think sometimes love and courage go together, where if somebody, as an example, is being a racist, no, you don't. No, you don't. Not in my watch. You stop it. And Maya used to be famous for kicking people out of her house. So in her house, if somebody was being or using negative pejoratives like hate, hostility, or any sort of calling people out of their names, she would actually give them one warning. And she said, "You're not going to use those words in my house, not in my walls, not in my carpet, because those words are not going to get into me. Please
Mhm.
stop it." And that's love too. And I think that actually, this is where I love what you're talking about, because I also think we also need to stand up for love sometimes. And I think it means having the courage to say the unpopular thing
Yeah.
sometimes. And we need to stop placating or bypassing when people are doing horrendous things. We need to say, no, you're not doing that anymore. Not around me, anyways. If that's the way you want to be, I'm not going to participate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And I couldn't agree more with that. There's been many times where I've loved myself enough to shut down, something that was completely unkind and not
Yeah.
loving in my environment. I do that in my office.
Yeah.
If somebody's moving into a place of just hatred for another person,
Yeah. Yeah.
or being racist in any way, I just shut it down because I love myself enough. In your friend that says it's not going to get into my walls and into my carpet,
Yeah.
100%,
Yeah.
hundred
It's
percent.
powerful. Yeah. Beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Hmm.
This topic is so expansive, and it it reaches much farther than our mind could ever go. And
Hmm.
I think when we move outside of the first layer of love. The first layer of love is tends to be a very conditional one. When we move into a place of love that's beyond opposites and conditions and
Hmm.
requires nothing in return, that we drop into a love that has the ability to rip through the entire universe and
Hmm.
reach whoever we point it at.
Hmm.
And I think that's a really powerful aspect of when you say love expands love. I think, you know, we don't even understand a second of how powerful that is.
Hmm. I also think that love moves mountains. I can also say that I love the word transcend, because love transcends. And I know, and I'm talking about real love. When you love with pure unconditional love, it transcends what someone is unable to actually hold in vibration, because it is the all and the everything. When you're in a position where something is really, really hard, if you can just even love, and it would be like, as an example, you know how a bully can exist, right?
Mhm.
If you just go and bully that bully, you're just basically matching their frequency with the same energy. Whereas love, what love looks like is love goes, you know what? You must be hurting. What's hurting you?
Mhm.
Why are you responding this way? And I think oftentimes what we do is we marginalize the bully. But what if we actually went to the bully and said, "Why are you acting like this? What's the root cause of why are you treating another human being without any value? What are you doing?" That's love. And I think that love shows up to show, the unloved what that energy is by caring, and not by just pointing a finger and shaming them. That's actually hatred.
Mm.
That's not love. And I think, this is where things get really challenging because it's not always easy to love the bully because they've hurt someone. And we've been so conditioned to just judge the bully. And yes, I'm not for bullies. So I'm not giving permission to the bully to hurt another human being. However, how are we going to solve the long term bully is not by the same energy they're doing to another. It's by loving them. And that goes back to Gandhi's statement as like an eye for an eye makes everyone blind, right? Like
Mm.
that's the challenge, and that's where Jesus and just the teaching of that unconditional love. And we have so many teachers, Buddha, we can look to any of them.
Mm. Well, and it's easy for our minds to go into a place of negativity because, studies have shown that thoughts that drop into your head, a good portion of those thoughts can be negative. And I didn't believe that. And I have talked about this in my public talks many times, but it's easy to fall into that negative rhythm. You see something you don't like, and then you go to war at it. Today I made a post about toxic social media and allowing it to saturate you. And if there's anything that contracts the love in ourselves, is when we start to hate the outside world. And when people are complaining about the things that they hate in this world, I say, everything is happening in this moment for us to know God more.
Mhm.
And when we just focus on this negative aspect that we see in the world, we're not going back and reclaiming our own power in this moment. We're just reinforcing the thing that we don't want to keep perpetuating a problem in the world. So, love for me is this powerful tool that I don't hate the bully. The bully, like you say, needs love. I was a victim of bullying, and I was a bully at different points in my life, and I understand that process very well.
One of the other teachings that I love that Maya also taught, so Maya Angelou always also said that the brute, so nothing human shall be alien to me is the statement. So nothing human shall be alien to me. So that means that if, the brute, the beast, the bigot, the batterer, if that's within him or her, it can also be within me. And I
Mhm.
think just to the teaching of the bully, because we've all, when someone's hurt us, we just sometimes have responded with wanting to protect ourselves by hurting someone back. So it's a natural human survival instinct. However, actually, we're more than just the human survival instinct. And this is where things come very interesting into focus, because when you go to the human, well, you're maybe not going to be able to have the greatest outcome. However, if you go to the love, which is the divinity, which we also are, actually, before we were ever human, we were spirit, then we can draw upon something greater than that energy that is just already just accumulating. So I love to your point, I love that nothing human shall be alien to me. And I think it really is to use our energies constructively as opposed to destructively, right?
Mhm.
And when we choose that every single time, we'll feel better about ourselves, which when we feel better about us, we can help even more with love. And it's interesting because it's like that quantum ball just gets bigger, the snowball just keeps getting bigger once you make the commitment to just do your best. And if you fail, just start again tomorrow. It's okay. You don't need to be perfect. You just start again. And I think that we're actually a lot closer to that nirvana understanding than any of us are willing to say. I'll say it right now. I see more and more love in the world, even though the world keeps showing me hate on the news.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me because there are two worlds going on, and what you seek is seeking you. So maybe turn off the news, stop focusing on the hate, and maybe turn toward love and start researching what's going on in your community that's loving and kind. Start there,
Mhm.
you'll find it.
100%. So to
Yeah.
recap, today we're talking about how love expands love. Paul opened up this talk with speaking about loving self, the importance of that. And as we move into our healing, we create this space in us that we can start to live in. And it's a space of love. It's a space that can guide us and teach us, and in every moment of our lives, it brings us into this present moment with the awareness of the divine at our fingertips. And if the outside world is a problem for you, get into your inside world and listen, and he'll tell you what to do. Any concluding, closing thoughts on this topic, Paul?
Well, I think in the end, it's just, at the end of the day, each of us inside of us are like a garden. And, when you start looking at the garden and to till the soil, the inner landscapes are really, really important. The inside creates the outside. So if you want to change your life or if you want to have a new experience, you have to have rich, nourishing soil inside to grow some new things. So add some new seeds that peace, love, joy, happiness, prosperity, they're all seeds. And the way that you do it is you plant them in your garden first and let them grow within you. And then when they grow within you, you have something to work with, and then you can share them or grow them outside of you. And I think that inner garden, those inner landscapes you're talking about, Ned, are the inside world creates the outside world. And we all need to become very clear and straight about that. So love always begins within the inner gardens. And to really do an overhaul on your garden, you can get rid of any weeds. It's easy. You just have to get rid of them and you just let them go. Get rid of them, and then you put something new inside of you. So you can replenish your inner garden with divine love every day by just finding loving things in the world. Nature's a really great resource. Go for a walk, smell a tree, hug a tree. You can pick a flower. You can go buy roses for yourself. Any of those things, simple things. If you can't afford roses, go pick a natural bouquet of flowers from the garden of the forest, and start there and do those acts of love for yourself and take a moment to reflect on them and drink them in and let them become part of your awareness and say thank you to yourself when you do it. And it's all about just those little steps are huge movements toward more love. So I think just, that is something to take away, and maybe listen to a loving, kind song. Go to my website or find another musician that you love that sings about love, and close your eyes when you listen to it and hear it with your heart. Give yourself permission to hear music, maybe closing your eyes. Put on earbuds or earphones and maybe really turn off one sense like your sight and really let music take you on a journey inside. Those are some things. Yeah.
Anyone listening here today, if you've enjoyed any little sliver of this conversation, I urge you to go to Paul's website. There will be a link in the show notes for this podcast, and check out his music. You can purchase all of his music right from his site. And trust me, if you like what this gentleman is telling us here today, his singing is going to blow up your heart. I promise you.
Beautiful.
Thanks
Well,
so
thank
much.
you. And Ned, thank you. And to anyone listening to, blessings to you. I wish you peace, love, joy, happiness, and prosperity. And also, one of the things I love about music is it brings people together. So I know you have social media pages that are devoted to love and kindness. So do I. And I think when we share loving, kind things, it is just like the amplification in a microphone. So if you like this, share it with someone that perhaps might need it, that's going through a hard time, or reach out to a friend that might benefit from something we've said. And I think that's how we all start taking action toward a more loving world.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again, Paul. Such a
It's
joy
such an
and
honor.
pleasure.
Thank you so much, Ned. I love you.
I love you.